welcome to Legally Speaking. With me, Tarun Nangia. Chief Justice of India, Justice N.V. RAMANA said that faster delivery of justice has been something that he wanted to push for as soon as he occupied the chair of the Chief Justice of India. And because of that itself, he recommended a record 180 names as judges. And he said that many of those, about 195 vacancies actually were in filled. And we must thank him for his efforts because he, in a sense, walks the talk. He spoke and the appointments happened. But he's given us one more good news. He spoke that he's going to propose filling 120 more vacancies. And he also pointed out that, in a sense, it's not good to have large number of vacancies in the judiciary. It affects the functioning. And that is why, because in the previous tenures of Chief Justices, due to whatever reasons, the appointments were slow. But the efforts have borne fruit of what Chief Justice of India, Justice RAMANA, worked for. And we are all grateful that these appointments have happened. And so we're going to discuss on what he has also himself spoken. He spoke his heart out a few days ago on these issues, which we'll discuss on the program. May I welcome today Senior Advocate Atmaram Natkarni. He's a top counsel at the Supreme Court of India and needs no introduction. But he's also served as the Additional Solicitor General of India until very recently. And good to see you again, Mr. Natkarni. And looking forward to some interesting interventions from you. I have with me Justice Chella Kodandaram, and somebody who speaks his mind on issues, a man with very clear opinions on each subject. He minces no words. And that is why it's a pleasure to have him on the show. Justice Kodandaram, good to see you again. And I have with me Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari, counsel at the Supreme Court of India, who joins us from London today, where he is staying currently. And somebody who has a very clear view on issues and explains it pretty well. It's a pleasure to hear you, Abhimanyu, and looking forward to some interesting inputs from you. You've practiced during the time of Justice RAMANA, and you appeared before him many times. You've also appeared in other, so you can sort of bring a flavor of how things change when these appointments happen. But may I at the outset request Mr. Natkarni to lay the ground of this issue in the next 2.5 minutes, and then we'll move ahead.
We have about 25 high courts in India. And the combined strength of the high court judges in India is about 1,104 or something. As of 1st of April 2022, the total number of judges, occupying their seats was about 717. And after 1st April, large number of judges have retired in the year 2022. But as of today, officially, 387 seats remain vacant. And out of this, I think almost about 167 or 177 now with the latest recommendations are pending with the central government for appointment. Normally, the vacancies in the High Court is a very serious matter because it impedes the justice delivery system, which is a most important cardinal principle of our democracy. People are languishing in jail. People are waiting for justice. And if they don't get justice delayed, it's justice denied. So if for reason that the appointment of judges has not taken place in time, this happens, then it's a very serious matter. Unfortunately, in India, for some reason or other, whatever, I don't want to go into it, it had not happened. But I'm so delighted and happy to say that the present Chief Justice of India, Justice RAMANA, had taken personal interest, and hats off to Justice RAMANA and the Collegium for expediting and getting not only 9 judges at a time in Supreme Court of India together for the first time, and a large number of other high courts, vacancies are being filled. That process is on. So that is where, I would like to make this introductory remarks. I only wish and pray and hope that the Chief Justice of India and the Collegium and the Government of India work in tandem to fill in all the vacancies at the High Court level and the Supreme Court level.
Thank you for that introductory comment. I'll go to Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari for his opening intervention.
I'm going to echo the sentiments that have been raised by Mr. Nadkarni. During the pandemic, of course, things had really slowed up. And there was a lot of despair as not many appointments were happening. And I think that once Honorable the Chief Justice has come in, Justice RAMANA, we've seen a large number of appointments. I practice in the Delhi High Court also, Tarun. And let me tell you that after a long time, we've seen so many judges being appointed in Delhi High Court. I do know that about 387 vacancies are still there. But I think one thing that I think the Collegium and the Honorable Chief Justice should consider is whether now is the right time to aggressively increase the number of judges that actually High Court should have. I think that every High Court should have much more judges than what is already the number, which I know we haven't met as yet. And I think one would say that you are wishing for too much, because first let's fulfill what is vacancy and then increase that quota. But I think, Tarun, as a commercial litigator, our Commercial Courts Act can only work if there are large number of judges and if a big commercial matter if taken up, can be heard on a day-to-day basis. That can only happen at the High Court level if we have large number of more appointments that come through. So I think that although this initiative is great, and I think that the way we've seen the appointments in Delhi High Court and other high courts, and of course 9 judges at a time coming into Supreme Court, I think that it is time. And I think if there is one collegium and one Chief Justice who could really change this, it is Justice RAMANA, because the way he has done this in such a great fashion, the number of appointments that we have seen, I think that he inspires a lot of hope that if he wants it and if this collegium wants it, the government will work with them. And frankly, in all fairness, the government has also come across, and that article of yours where Justice RAMANA spoke his heart out over that quotation, there he also mentions that the government is cooperating in a very big way to get this through. So I think the atmosphere is so good right now with the government supporting the collegium and the Honorable Chief Justice in getting things done. This is really the time when, these vacancies should be fulfilled, and even the number of judges which are already provided for should be rapidly increased. And more judges should come in, because it will change the complete outlook of our country. We should not forget that trillion, in your programs, Tarun, in this very program, we've discussed India becoming a $5 trillion economy. We should not forget that every $5 trillion economy needs what is the biggest export commodity of a $5 trillion economy? The rule of law. If your rule of law is solid and you can tell your institutional investors and foreign investors that, look, you will get speedy justice, then that is actually like an infrastructure in an economy. It's as important as good roads. It is as important as electricity and power, is the fact that you have a robust rule of law which you can export to other nations and tell them, look, if you are in a dispute in our country, it will be resolved in a jiffy. So I think if we want to see this India go into a $5 trillion economy, we need to ensure that the basic infrastructure to export rule of law is created. And I think if there is someone who can do this now, it is the Honorable Chief Justice of India, who's done a remarkable job so far. And therefore, this is really the time that we should use this atmosphere that is created, where the government is also cooperating, to increase the number of judges rapidly.
Thank you for that introductory comment. I'll go to Justice Chella Kodandaram now that both the advocates have spoken. Justice Kodandaram, it's a two-pronged happiness for you. Justice RAMANA is from your home state. He's someone who you know much better than many of us. You've seen him, in a sense, as a young advocate and also now. And I remember that you were there at the foundation stone laying ceremony of the Hyderabad International Arbitration Center.
Yes.
One of the few judges who were present that day. Now, if you could share it, because one good thing that has happened, especially in his home state, a lot of lower court appointments have also happened during his tenure. So it's not only Supreme Court, High Court, but lower court appointments in his home state. Your opening comment today.
Well, the Law Commission's recommendation is for 50 judges should be per million people. Whereas the finding is there were only 21 judges per million as of date. overall. And as the learned ASG has pointed out, the number of sanctioned strength has remained virtually constant. Even as late as in December 2020, it was only 1,079. And then in 2022, it has become 1,108. Say about 40-50 number has increased. And that number also, I should say, in fact, it has happened in Telangana about 2022. Likewise in Andhra Pradesh. So somebody may accuse the learned Chief Justice as of being little more partisan towards his parent state, but I think he's justified in being so. The large number of vacancies which have also got filled up, if you look at this thing, that in 3 states, one is in Telangana, another is in Bihar, another is in Calcutta. The rest of the states, there is still some appointments are being made. But what is remarkable is the learned Chief Justice, unlike in earlier times where it is said that government is not cooperating or somebody is not cooperating or High Court is not sending the recommendations, whatever it is, the learned Chief Justice had, the Justice N.V. Ramana had his own way of persuading the respective Chief Justices, respective collegium members and the people in government and getting the cooperation. You may say the word cooperation may not be the right word for the Chief Justice because he can command. Yes, he can definitely command when he sits on the bench. The minute he sets in the administrative capacity, he just like any other leader of the institution, he also needs to have persuasive skills, and he had shown that he was able to persuade. In fact, I may share a conversation which I had with him. After my demitting office, I went to see him on the 7th of August or 13th of August, I don't remember, 2021. The just previous day, he had met 2 days before or so, he had called on President of India and he had had a meeting with him. Then when we went there, I requested saying that whether the Chief Justice, then appointments have to be made and all. Then he said, you see, many of the recommendations are pending with the government. Then what I had told him is that why don't you speak to Prime Minister directly? He said, no, that is not the protocol or whatever it is. Then I said, no, that was the old school. As of date, you being the head of the judiciary, he's the Prime Minister is the leader for the country. You are the leader for the judiciary. And I'm sure that if only we send indication with regard to these issues to be discussed, Prime Minister and the Law Minister will be too glad to come and cooperate. And to my pleasant surprise, he did take this, what I had said quite seriously in a very sportive manner. And thereafter, I had seen the result. The result is the various vacancies being cleared. Of course, there's a change in law ministry. That's a different issue. Law minister has changed and then the things went on very fast. Probably the change also could be one of the reason. But the remarkable way in which it has been cleared. And the more important thing is that Justice Ramana had set a trend for the future Chief Justices and future would-be Chief Justices and also collegium members that this can be done and it has to be done.
Because he's shown that he's delivered and shown it. There are no speeches. The appointments have happened and now he started speaking. I remember Justice Kodandaram after that foundation stone laying ceremony at this Hyderabad, he dashed off to UAE, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
For talking about how people should come to the Hyderabad Arbitration Center. I think he and some other judges from the Supreme Court.
Justice Nageshwar Rao and Justice Hima Kohli.
Yeah, Justice Hima Kohli and Justice Nageshwar Rao, both had, all 3 of them had got. But I'm now taking this to Senior Advocate Atmaram Nadkarni. Mr. Nadkarni, Justice Ramana said two things. He said, I took up the mantle at a time we were suffering from COVID as a society, this pandemic was going on. Otherwise, I would have done much more for judicial infrastructure. Secondly, he said that I'm just putting a proposal for 120 more judicial appointments and I am hopeful it goes through. Do you think that this gentleman, our Chief Justice, will do much more even in the next 1.5, 2 months that remain of his tenure? Do you think that there is a lot more that we get to see now?
Tarun, it's a fact that he took over at a time when this pandemic was affecting. I mean, it affected before his tenure also, before he took over. His predecessor also faced the same thing. But despite that pandemic, once things started clearing up, we saw the appointments coming through, which was a very good sign, very positive sign. And since then, the Collegium has met several times. They have made so many proposals. On the judicial side also, they have made certain observations insofar as high courts and tribunals are concerned and all this. And I'm confident that he still has his tenure till August. And August is almost another 2 months, 1.5 months to 2 months to go. And 2 months are good enough for a Chief Justice of India and the Collegium to get the appointments through. After all, what is it? If the Chief Justice and the Collegium in the High Court has recommended a lawyer, found him worth to be appointed to the constitutional post of a judge of a High Court, the Collegium in the Supreme Court will take a second call. And once these two calls are taken by the constitutional courts, the government has to only, make inquiries about his antecedent, about IB report, etc. If there is something adverse against the person. If there is nothing adverse against the person, there should not be any other inquiry other than that. I mean, you can't make such appointments. Earlier, if you remember, these appointments were a very secret process. Of course, it has its own merits and demerits, because now whenever a name comes, there are 1,000 complaints which just, are being this one. So, I mean, that is also not a very happy thing. But I'm sure, given this 2 months tenure, whatever Justice Ramana has, I'm confident that he'll try his best with the help of his judges in the Collegium to get through and make more appointments. Whether it is 120 or 140 or 100, whatever comes, little also comes, with so much the better. Because, today the litigants are suffering because the high courts are virtually working at times even 2/3 or half their strength. Take a case of Delhi, take case of Bombay, take case of Rajasthan, take case of Orissa, take case of Allahabad. I mean, all these high courts, and the litigation mounts, arrears increase every day. So therefore, my personal view is that there should be a very cooperative attitude between all High Court Collegium, Supreme Court Collegium, and the central government. And this must be got through done. Well, after all, what? The litigant winning a case, he gets justice, then the government wins every case. There is a board in one of the American Supreme Courts in the courtroom that government wins every case where the litigant gets justice. So even if it's against Union of India and the petition is allowed, then he has got justice. He may have won the matter, but it's actually the Union of India which wins the matter. So that should be the mindset and attitude of a person.
I'm going to advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari. Mr. Bhandari, we remember we did a show on the National Judicial Infrastructure Corporation, NJIC. Justice Ramana had a grand plan to overhaul judicial infrastructure in the country. And in his comment, he said that, he should have been able to do a lot more had COVID not happened. But in any case, he goes down as a Chief Justice whose record in appointments is unparalleled. Do you think you see a bit of regret in his demeanor where he feels that he himself feels he could have done a lot more?
Of course. I mean, his tenure, of course, got there was a period of pandemic which took over for many months of his tenure. So he did not get to bat the full time of his tenure. But what he's achieved since then is absolutely remarkable. And I think that, we still have a good 2 months to go.
Yes.
And I'm quite sure that we will see some more appointments, hopefully, at the way this has gone. As Mr. Nadkarni said, that everybody he's created, and as Justice Challa said, that it's just one thing is just recommending names and having collegium meetings and recommending. The other is to actually ensure that things move through, and those recommendations are not recommendations on paper, but actually judges take oath. What is remarkable, Tarun, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a number of judges have been made who were reiterated names for the second time by the Supreme Court, and they have also taken oath. That is remarkable, absolutely. And the way appointments have happened in such a good fashion. So I think that I think there is a bit of a regret that his tenure, he in whatever tenure he had, part of it was eaten up by the pandemic. But I think that, so there is, of course, because I think that if he had more time, we would have seen far more progress in not only appointment of judges, but also creation of judicial infrastructure all over the country. Justice Ramana, as lawyers, we get to read about judges, when they go out, when they meet people. His tenure has been a tenure where, notwithstanding the pandemic, we see him as a very people's-facing Chief Justice.
That's
judges are very conservative. They don't meet many people, and you have that thing because and there is also merit in that, because many people feel the judges should be like cloistered nuns. But a Chief Justice of India is not only a judge who's dispensing justice, but also has, as Justice Challa rightly said, Honorable Justice Challa also rightly said, is actually the head of the administration institution. So he has to work with other organs of the state to ensure that judicial infrastructure increases rapidly. And we see Justice Ramana as very people-facing judges. When you read the Indian Express, when you read the Times of India, and you read the stories, he went to a temple, he met people, he went here, his lectures, you just feel that he's reaching out. He's allowing the institution of judiciary to reach out to the people. Also remember, Tarun, that 5 years back, 6 years back, there was no this frankly or legally speaking. There was no bar and bench. There was not so much attention given to what judges say in court. Nowadays, everything a judge says is reported within half an hour in social media. So also judiciary what happens in courtroom has become a consumption for masses. And it's astonishing, before you would ask someone, do you know who the collegium judges are? And they would not be able to name. Now, every other person and businessman would know, oh yes, this is so-and-so is the part of the collegium. So judiciary is actually becoming something which is being watched, critiqued upon, consumed. People are listening to what judges are saying in the court. So we live in a different world today where a lot about judiciary is being spoken. I don't see that much happening in the UK or US, where what a judge says orally in court is caught on by social media and then goes viral. Here, a comment by a judge, which may have some mirch or masala, is caught on and it goes out. So we live in a country where actually justice, dispensation of justice and judiciary is in the news, whether you like it or not. And we could not have got a better Chief Justice who's people-facing, who goes, meets people. People can talk to him. When you read about him, when you see the pictures, you just feel he's just like an ordinary man who reaches out to people. So with this and with the way judicial reform has happened, no one could have thought. People would have thought, oh, again, there would be there would be a fight. And, you hear in the galleries of power, you hear all these little bits and pieces, but here you've just seen action and action. So I hope that this continues, and I'm quite confident that even the future judges who will come now will be inspired by his tenure, and because every Chief Justice would like to do something for the country. And I think future judges who will come will be inspired by his tenure and will also try and get people together so things can move. I think one thing that he has done, he's got people together. He's got the government to cooperate with the judiciary. He's got the collegium to sit together and do this, to make recommendations actually happen and not just be on paper.
But isn't it beautiful, as you put it, Mr. Bhandari, that he's turned out to be a communicator. He speaks. Yes. So we don't have to second guess what he's thinking. He'll simply go out and communicate with the stakeholders of the economy, with the common people, as you put it rightly. And that is an asset because, we in a sense can know. I mean, even with appointments or anything, he goes out and says, I'm going to do this. I intend to do this. And that is why he's also discussed so much because, we feel that, see, the beauty of Justice Ramana is that he also makes us feel that we are all in it together. We are part of it. because he discusses. It's not as if we get to know from only when the appointments happen or only when the names are proposed. He says, oh, I'm going to appoint so many judges. I need to propose. That's a beautiful thing. I'm going to Justice Chella Kodandaram for his comment.
Well, as brother has put it, very nice word he has used, that the judge, people's facing judge, people facing judge. In other words, he has become one among the ordinary citizen when it comes to the dealing with the problems. And he has the most important thing is, I always keep saying one important quote which I remember is this: the battles are won in general's camp. I repeat, battles are won in general's camp. Now, so far as the judiciary is concerned, who can be the general other than the Chief Justice of India? And that's where the plans have to be conceived. That's where the plans have to be frozen. And that's where the strategy has to be evolved. And I'm sure, in one word, Justice Ramana had already shown that. And he has, more important thing is, he has shown that this is the way it has to be done in future. And I strongly believe the same would be done by the successive Chief Justices, who are also much more, they are also as learned and also as concerned with respect to the system. And they probably, the learned would-be Chief Justice, maybe Justice Lalit may not have much of a time, but Justice Chandrachud having 2.5 years, I'm sure that we are going to see the following action of the path laid by Justice Ramana.
Thanks for that input. We have almost hardly any time left. One last intervention by Senior Advocate Atmaram Natkar.
Yeah, in conclusion, what I would say is that we can't change the past, but we could ruin into a perfectly good present by thinking about the future. I entirely agree with what my Lord Justice Chella Kodandaraman had said. I also agree with Abhimanyu Bhandari that this will be, the path which the future Chief Justices and the collegium members will take. It will be a motivation for them that, they'll be like go-getters to get things done from the government. But at the same time, as I just mentioned, that for a collegium, it's a huge responsibility. At times we see that there is a delay in the collegium in finalizing particular names. See, don't forget, even if you want to keep a dog in your house, you check the pedigree of the dog, etc. So while appointing a judge to a constitutional court, whether it is the High Court Collegium or the Supreme Court Collegium, is bound to take some. So the only thing which they should do is, they should not go by this vacancy concept. They know when a person is going to retire. They know it when they appoint him. So they should always go by what is called as an anticipated vacancy. That must be what you call, like they have the recruitment here at the UPSC. They should always have, anticipated vacancy concept, and knowing that somebody is going to retire, in anticipation of that retirement, they should start the process of appointment. And they can't wait for the month of March when somebody is retiring at the end of March to start the process, because now we know it takes about 3 to 6 months, which should not take more than 10 days or 2 weeks. Just see this 9 judges were appointed in Supreme Court, and even the subsequent 2 judges who were appointed, they were appointed within 2 days of recommendation by the collegium. Now, true it is they are sitting High Court judges or Chief Justices, therefore it was easy. But when you appoint lawyers also, start the process pretty early, and so that all this could be this one. So those were my concluding remarks. Thank you.
I'll just add to what the learned ASG had said. In fact, Supreme Court in its judgment had categorically said the process has to start 6 months before a likely vacancy. And more often, the blame is on the Chief Justice of the respective states not recommending or not initiating that process. In a way, I say with all frankness, that there is a violation of the Supreme Court mandate and judgment of the Supreme Court. And why they do is, the entire bar knows. But they'll have to just I would put it as, the very mild word is the dereliction of duty.
But thanks. This was a good show today. But I like it more because we spoke on such a positive note that the past, we faced COVID, but during Justice Ramana's tenure, appointments happened. 9 appointments in Supreme Court. It's a very big news even for us. When it happened, we couldn't believe what's happened. Delhi High Court, for example, so many appointments have gone through. If the trend continues, we will, in fact, all sanctioned posts will have appointed judges. There are elevations from the lower court that are slated. 6 elevations from lower court may happen in near future. So, this is something that should be applauded because when it didn't happen, we all were speaking in hushed tones that, appointments have come to a stop. 500, 600 vacancies. But now things have started moving, and it is something for us to cherish and to celebrate. I would like to thank Senior Advocate Atmaram Nadkarni, Justice Chella Kodandaram, Advocate Abhimanyu Bhandari for sparing time and joining on all this very important topic. And viewers, thank you so much for joining. Thank you,
Tarun. Thank you, Tarun. It's been an excellent show. Always to watch you doing this kind of program. Thank you. All the best. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abhimanyu.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.